Once again, you are now listening to the Paul McGUIRE Report. This is Paul McGUIRE. Okay, so in the fullness of time, Jesus Christ comes. That was prophesied throughout the Old Testament, by the way. It was prophesied as far back as Genesis. And it was prophesied as far back as when Adam and Eve fell in the Garden of Eden. There are many things in the Old Testament which are powerful prophetic signs to the reality of Jesus Christ as the Lamb of God and whose blood can take away our sins. That's all over the Old Testament. And then we go into the New Testament. Jesus comes. Anybody who believes in him should not perish but have everlasting or eternal life. And so, throughout this massive saga of thousands of years transpiring, let's just hop back in time and go back to the time where the Nephilim were mating with human females. And let's remember that Jesus Christ prophesied to us in terms of the signs of the times that one of the key signs of the times would be the sign of Noah. Well, what's the sign of Noah? The sign of Noah is that as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the day of the coming of the Son of Man. What was that? In the days of Noah, the fallen angels came down from heaven and were mating with human females, which resulted in the human females giving birth to a hybrid race known as the Nephilim or the Nephilim. And that hybrid race is a race which consists of a mixture of human female DNA and fallen angel DNA. So up to the present moment, this prophecy of the return of the fallen angels has been gathering momentum throughout the entire earth. If you do a macro study of the super civilizations that really did exist all over the world, it is a biblical fact, an historical fact, and an archaeological fact that there is real life documentation of documented, proven archaeological evidence, biological evidence, genetic evidence, and all kinds scientific and technological evidence, and all kinds of other evidence that declares it as a fact that all these ancient monuments that are being discovered all across the world, like the Incan monuments, the Mayan monuments, the monuments in Mexico and across South America, monuments all over North America, monuments all over Europe, Russia, all across the world, the Middle East, Middle Eastern nations. There are all these giant monuments like massive pyramids. And remember, I've dealt with this in many of my books, like A Prophecy of the Future of America, Volume 1 and Volume 2, The Day the Dollar Died, and Are You Ready, and The Greatest Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Mankind in the History of the World, and many of my other books, and I have available to you at a super discount. In fact, if you order right now at paulmcguire.us, you can receive a super 6-book discount, a 6-book package that is just power-packed with the truth, and we deal with all of these subjects and lots more. Available to you at a super discount right now at paulmcguire.us, the 6-book special. So, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. So there has been a clandestine resurgence, a massive rediscovery of these massive temples and massive super civilization structures like Stonehenge, the Mayan ruins, the Incan ruins, the Mexican ruins, ruins all across America and Europe, Stonehenge, giant ruins in remote places of Russia. On the ocean floor of the Bahamas, there is one pyramid after another, and what photographers and videographers have captured by photographing and videoing the ocean floor, they believe that they've discovered the gigantic ruins of the super civilization Atlantis. And so you look and you see pyramid after pyramid and the entire superstructure of a super civilization laid out majestically on the ocean floor. And oceanographers and historians and researchers, many of them believe that this was the exact location of ancient Atlantis, which was a super civilization that many people believe existed. And when you study, as I have, and I've written about it in my books like A Prophecy of the Future of America, Volume 1 and 2, I talk about the super civilizations, how they were built. And I talk about, and this is that's being collectively rediscovered. Atlantis is filled with knowledge and documentation that points its finger to the way of Nephilim entities of that perhaps existed. According to it, the legend of Atlantis, they did exist. The super civilization, like Atlantis, many people believe Atlantis was really flooded and judged by God, and that Atlantis was flooded, some experts believe, at the same chronological time as the flood of Noah occurred. Because what they maintain is that there was a race of super intelligent god kings. I call them in my books the Pharaoh God Kings, or the Pharaoh God King system. And these God Kings, there were, I believe, 12 of them. The 12 philosopher kings, or 12 God Kings that ruled the super civilization of Atlantis. Atlantis was a super civilization because architecturally it was highly, highly advanced. And it was packed with all this advanced technology and advanced scientific understanding. And what has been said by a number of historical experts regarding Atlantis and other super civilizations was that Atlantis was ruled by genetic god kings. The philosopher kings of Atlantis, the god kings of Atlantis, were allegedly, they had the DNA, which was a mixture between fallen angel DNA mixed with human female DNA. And supposedly they had the genetic markers of what the Bible refers to as the God Kings, or the mighty men of old. And one of the attributes of the mighty men of old, one of the attributes of the Nephilim, one of the giveaways that these supermen or superwomen were actually Nephilim, was the fact that their DNA contained an odd mixture of fallen angel DNA with human female DNA. In addition to that, another genetic marker was that they were called the mighty men of old, or the mighty men of renown, in that they were physical giants. They supposedly had 6 fingers. So supposedly, historically, the genetic markers for the Nephilim, or the fallen angel DNA, one could tell if this person or this king had fallen angel DNA in them if they had 6 fingers, or if they had or if they were physically giants. For the most part, well, for the entire part I'm not talking about giants that were just like an inch or two above a really tall human man. I'm not talking about somebody who's, let's say, the size of a tall Los Angeles Laker basketball player and somebody who's taller than him. That wouldn't fit the category of a giant. A giant was vastly larger than a human man. The giants of old were at least several feet minimum, or way above several feet. Way above. I don't even want to quote it because it gets to be so tall it's ridiculous. But the giants of old, who had the fallen angel DNA in them, were massively taller and bigger in height and breadth than any human man. And they had super intelligence, superpowers, a highly advanced science fiction-like knowledge of futuristic technology and futuristic sciences. In fact, the super civilizations that they ruled over possessed highly advanced science fiction-like technology and sciences that enabled these super civilizations like Atlantis, the island of Vril, as in the Vril Force, Thule, like again the Vril Force and the Nazis, and the Nazi technology, and the Vril Ya maidens. All of these things go back to the hybrid DNA of the fallen angels. So it brings us, where does it bring us to? It brings us to the present moment. In fact, if we want to get very detailed on it and very specific, in 1947, the U.S. military snuck into America 200 Nazi rocket scientists, Nazi mind control scientists, and Nazi DNA genetic scientists. 200 highly advanced Nazi scientists, especially in the field of rocketry, DNA, and genetic engineering, were smuggled into the U.S. Because why? Because America's military was in competition with Russia's military to get all the hotshot Nazi rocket scientists, Nazi DNA scientists, and Nazi mind control scientists they could get their hands on. So they could build an invincible army and control the rising New World Order. So where did all of this come from? Remember, but 1947, that's when they brought these Nazi scientists into America. 1947 was when a UFO supposedly crashed into the desert in Roswell, New Mexico. But it goes further and wider than that. The proliferation of these super civilizations with their historical documentation and archaeological relics, super civilizations like the Empire of Egypt, ancient Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the North American Empire, America, and empires throughout South America and the Middle East and across the world. The Empire of King Solomon. All of these super civilizations, it's like they accelerated. It's like they took a giant leap forward in historical, archaeological, technological, scientific progress. You had all these Nazi scientists who had these technologies that people wouldn't have dreamed about in their craziest imagination. And it was out of the context of this superhuman access to superhuman intelligences like the Nazi rocket program and the V2 rockets, where Wernher von Braun, the father of NASA, the top Nazi rocket scientist and the father of NASA for America, Wernher von Braun led our rocket program, NASA. And notice the nomenclature, notice the labeling of all the different rocket programs have either an astrological, occult basis, or they point to a belief in Eastern mysticism or occultic historical gods. So you have Artemis, named after a goddess, Apollo, the sun god, Hercules, a mythical superhuman Superman, and on and on and on. All of these highly advanced mythical supernatural figures are the identifying factors for our space program. Why? There's a deep secret buried in there. And so they came to the United States and they ingrained themselves in our science and technological think tanks and laboratories and all kinds of things. And the space race became truly a space race, unlike anything you've ever seen. So yeah, there's all these rumors, there's all these theories, and some of them, by the way, may be true. It is possible to have two diametrically opposed viewpoints regarding what happened scientifically and historically. It's possible to maintain two diametrically opposed viewpoints and still come out with a body of knowledge that is advanced enough to propel the nature of any given civilization hundreds of years fast forward in time. What I'm saying is that whether or not some of the things that we've heard regarding some of these specialized programs like NASA, whether they're all true or not, is secondary to the fact that they point to the acknowledgement by our scientific community, they point to an acknowledgement, a practice, and an experimentation with very high level sciences and whole areas of scientific discovery that have been discovered at least and admitted out in the open. All these highly advanced discoveries have been looked at out in the wide open. And things like 0 point energy, which is, the Tesla discovery. Tesla, of course, was a genius. I write about him in my book, The Greatest Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Mankind in the History of the World, A Prophecy of the Future of America, Volume 1 and 2. In my other books, I write all about Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, going back to the 1920s and before, created free energy. Tesla created a very inexpensive technology which could grab unlimited and infinite power out of an ether-like dimension or out of another dimension. He had a technology which could literally reach into another dimension and pull from this other dimension, pull out unlimited energy to power cities, nations, houses, militaries, whatever. That secret scientific discovery was largely suppressed by our military and competing militaries. Tesla invented all of these zero gravity technologies. It was alleged that the Nazi rocket program and the Nazi flying saucers, which they actually built, not all of them are like phony baloney stage models. The Nazi rocket scientists actually built futuristic UFO flying machines, but the Nazis powered their futuristic UFOs. They powered them with futuristic technology that was discovered by Nikola Tesla. And there's a whole lot of weaponry, there's a whole lot of technology and sciences that have been secretly operational in America and in different places around the world for many decades now. And so the bottom line is, America and some of the other nations in the world, we are far more advanced scientifically and technologically than most people realize, due to the discoveries of Nikola Tesla and others. So let's just take one area of discovery. The false notion, the mythology that we have an energy crisis is total nonsense. Nikola Tesla solved our alleged energy shortage program by the invention of what he called Tesla technology, which was unlimited free energy. But it was suppressed by very powerful billionaires who took the engineering diagrams and the prototypes and hid them away. Tesla's stuff was hidden away, but that does not mean for one moment that he didn't really discover it. Okay, so again, we're plunging into the current time frame of reality. And speaking of current time frames of reality, one of the spin-offs of Tesla's discoveries was the assertion by Tesla that through various technologies that he invented, it was possible to explore and to travel in different timelines. And so Nikola Tesla asserted that in any individual or nation's life, there could be 15 or more or 100 or more totally different timelines into the future, into the present, and into the past. A person could travel along any possible number of actual timelines. So for example, let's just take arbitrarily 2 different timelines. In one timeline, you live to be 125 years old and you go home to be with the Lord in perfect health. That's one possibility of a timeline for your life. Without contradicting that possible timeline, simultaneously there could be, hypothetically, a parallel timeline for your life in which you only live to be, let's say, 87 years old, and then you go home to be with the Lord. Each timeline produces a whole series of sub-events. So what was discovered, allegedly, by Tesla was that certain technologies can allow human beings to travel into the future in their timeline, within their timeline, or travel into the past through their timeline, or travel back into the present in their timeline. And so what does that mean? It basically means that if Tesla's theories are true, and those theories prove to be valid, it would prove the viability of time travel technology being made to the human race. Now, I know that sounds crazy land, far-fetched, and you know what? It does sound crazy land and far-fetched, and I'm going to just agree with you. It sounds flat out nuts. It sounds crazy. It sounds lunatic time. But that's not the important question. The important question is it true or not? Is it true minimally or not, or is it totally untrue? In other words, what in defining the subject of time travel and timelines, is it possible that there's any truth to the assertions, even on a microscopic minimal basis, yes or no? And if it is possible, even on a minimal basis, then that means if Tesla's technology worked as he claimed it did, then mankind would have traveled to whatever degree, small or very tiny amounts. Mankind may have traveled into the future, back into the present. Mankind may have traveled back into the past to change the future and reorder the present. I mean, all of these things are possibilities. Now, these things are claimed to have been true. That doesn't mean they are true. The whole secret government experiments surrounding the Montauk chair and the fictional episodic television series Stranger Things. That's all a fictional account of the Montauk chair claims of time travel and timelines and stuff like that. I'm not saying that it's true or not true. I'm just saying think about the fact that it's even being discussed as a potential viability. That's huge. So, when you see this build-up of features films, big budget feature films, like one of my favorite actors starred in a movie, big budget Hollywood feature film, directed by, I'm forgetting his name, big budget feature film, and the film centered around a fictional depiction of time travel being used by U.S. government agencies to find a girl who has been kidnapped by a terrorist aboard this giant, boat that gets people to one end or another. I think it was in San Francisco in the harbor. And so the only way, Denzel Washington was the star. Tony Scott was the director. So Denzel Washington plays the hero who's works for a governmental detective type agency. And Denzel Washington accidentally bumps into a secret government project regarding viable time travel. And so he accidentally ends up talking on the phone to the girl who was kidnapped and murdered, and it blows open. He realizes the only way the government could have possibly gotten the classified secretive information they got, the only way they could have gotten the information was if somehow they went back in time. And then he's paying attention to the technology that they have in some of their offices near the boating area, and he recognizes that, whoa, these are not just some low-end, low technology type of devices. Whatever he was looking at, Denzel Washington suspected this was really state-of-the-art, high-end time travel type technology. Now, there have been rumors about that for decades. Doesn't mean they're true. Doesn't mean they're not true. I don't have a definitive statement, but I'm very hesitant to rule anything out. But at the same time, I'm not going to just, willy-nilly accept something as true on the basis of a few shreds of evidence. Anyway, it's a fascinating movie. It's fictional, but it explores this whole area of time travel. So,